Hello, this is Activate Reading Week 1. So this piece is prose fiction, and you'll see the title up here. It tells you this is adapted from the novel The Fisher King by Paula Marshall. That was actually later made into a movie. So the first thing that you need to know that's super important for ACT reading is that, of course, you must read the entire passage to successfully answer these reading questions. Also, it's best if you read the question and all the answer choices before you choose the best answer. Okay, so let's read through. It was nearing the end of the second set, the jazz show winding down, when Hattie heard Abe Kaiser at the microphone call Everett Payne's name. Heard his name and, to her surprise, saw him slowly stand up in the bullpen up front. She hadn't seen him join the other local musicians, including Shades Bowen with his tenor sax, and what was called the bullpen, which was simply a dozen or so chairs grouped near the bandstand. The young locals gathered there each Sunday evening, hoping for a chance to perform. Because toward the end of the final set, the custom was to invite one or two of them to sit in with the band. They sometimes even got to choose the tune they wanted to play. This Sunday, Everett Payne, not long out of the Army, was the one being invited to sit in. Breath held, Hattie watched him separate himself from the hopefuls and approach the stand, taking his time, moving with what almost seemed a deliberate pause between each step. The crowd was waiting. That was his way, Hattie knew, his body moving absent-mindedly through space, his head, his thoughts on something other than his surroundings, and his eyes like a curtain he occasionally drew aside a fraction of an inch to peer out at the world, a world far less interesting than the music inside his head. She watched now as he slowly mounted the bandstand and conferred with the bassist and the drummer. Those two were all he would need. Then, without announcing the name of the tune he intended playing, without in any way acknowledging the audience, he sat down at the piano and brought his hands, large hands, the fingers long and splayed and slightly arched, down on the opening bars of Sonny Boy Blue. Sonny Boy Blue! That hokey tune. Around her the purists looked askance at each other from behind their regulation shades and slouched deeper in their chairs in open disgust. At first, hokey though it was, he played the song straight through as written, the rather long introduction, verse, and chorus, and he did so with great care, although at a slower tempo than was called for, and with a formality that lent the Tin Pan Alley tune a depth and thoughtfulness no one else would have accorded it. Quickly taking their cue from him, the bassist reached for his bow, the drummer for his brushes, the two of them also treating the original as if it were a serious piece of music. Everett Payne took his time paying his respects to the tune as written, and once that was done, he hunched closer to the piano, angled his head sharply to the left, completely closed the curtain of his gaze, and with his hands commanding the length and breadth of the keyboard, he unleashed a dazzling pyrotechnic of chords you could almost see their colors, polyrhythms, seemingly unrelated harmonies, and ideas, fresh, brash, outrageous ideas. It was an outpouring of ideas and feelings informed by his own brand of lyricism and lit from time to time by flashes of the unrecognizable melody. He continued to acknowledge the little simple-minded tune, while at the same time furiously recasting and reinventing it in an image all his own. A collective insuck of breath throughout the club. Where, Hattie wondered, did he come by the dazzling array of ideas and wealth of feeling? What was the source? It had to do, she speculated, listening intently, with the way he held his head, angled to the left like that, tilted toward both heaven and earth, his right side, his right ear directed skyward, hearing up there in the upper room among the stars Mahalia sang about, a new kind of music, splintered, atonal, profane, and possessing a wonderful dissonance that spoke to him, to his soul case. For him, this was the true music of the spheres, of the maelstrom up there. When at the piano, he kept his right ear tuned to it at all times, letting it guide him, inspire him. His other ear? It remained earthbound, trained on the bedrock that for him was Bach and the blues. Again and again he took them on a joyous, terrifying roller coaster of a ride, it seemed to Hattie, and when he finally deposited them on terra firma after close to 20 minutes, everyone in Putnam Roval could only sit there as if they were in church and weren't supposed to clap. Overcome. Until finally Alvin Edwards lived on Decatur Street, played trumpet in the school band, leapt to his feet, and renamed him. Alvin brought everyone up with him, including the purists who normally refused to applaud even genius. They too stood up in languid praise of him. Okay, so on the first question, it can be reasonably inferred, that means take your best guess, from the passage that Shades Bowen, let's see here, A, did not accompany Everett Payne as he played Sonny Boy Blue, B, had been in the Army with Everett Payne, C, was the oldest musician in the bullpen, D, did not usually allow the local musicians to play with the band. Well, on question 1, we can eliminate some of these answer choices. We know from the first paragraph that Shades Bowen was in the bullpen, but he was not called up front. Therefore, the answer cannot be A. We also know from paragraph 1 that Shades Bowen was in the bullpen, so he was not the one to allow or not allow local musicians to play. We cannot infer his relative age at all, so the best choice has to be that he was in the Army with Everett Payne, choice B. Now, when you read question 2, it refers to a specific line or paragraph. The first thing you should do is go back and reread that line or paragraph. And it's asking for main purpose. So line 62, I'm going to go over to that. Go back up here at the top. Line 62 reads, a collective insuck of breath throughout the club. Notice that it is not a complete sentence, but it's a powerful detail that allows the readers to know the reaction of the entire audience as they hear this talented pianist improvise from a well-known and boring song. No one would suck in their breath to show high expectations. That reaction shows that their low expectations have been superseded. That eliminates letter F there, the high expectation ones. You also could discredit answer J because we already know that Payne is a local musician, probably known in town. So we'll throw J out. Let's see here. Letter H is out because his reaction does not counteract the narrator's description of his performance. Instead, it strengthens the description by showing the reader how the audience in the jazz club, ostensibly people with discernment in this type of music, were amazed at what he played. With that in mind, answer choice G is the best. The line is given and set apart as its own paragraph, though it is not a real sentence, in order to inform the reader of the audience's surprised and pleased reaction to Everett Payne's performance. Now, question number 3, the passage most strongly suggests that the second set of the jazz club, or the jazz shows at the club is, this takes us back again to the first paragraph, and it talks about local musicians being asked to come up on stage nearing the end of the second set, the jazz show winding down, and it was towards the end of the final set. The only logical choice then is letter A. Question 4, which of the following details is used in the passage to indicate how the purists in the audience initially reacted to Everett Payne's choice of music? Now, purists means people who look at that art form and want it in its most pure form, and the word initially, that little adverb, means at first, or their first reaction. So, question 4 goes back to line 62 that we looked at in question 2. The purists, the people who probably liked jazz in its most pure forms, including improvisation, had a distinct reaction. You can also look at lines 35 through 37 there. Around her, the purists looked askance, which means sideways, at each other from behind their regulation shades and slouched deeper in their chairs in open disgust. So looking at the answer choices, we can narrow it down to H and J, since those are the only ones that deal specifically with the purist reaction. Since lines 37 through 35 tell us exactly what the purists did when Everett Payne first began playing, that is the best detail to indicate initial reaction. So choose H. Okay. To answer number 5, a question about what Everett Payne did prior to playing the song, look back at the 5th paragraph, the one starting with, "She watched now." Right there. It tells the reader that he did not look at nor speak to the audience nor move quickly. So you can eliminate answer choices A, B, and D. He did, however, confer with the bassist and the drummer, exactly as it states in lines 26 through 28. The correct answer is C.